Tabletop Toki here, and it is hard to believe, but 2024 is wrapping up here very shortly. And so I had the foresight this year to look ahead and compile my stats and BG stats a little bit early to bring you my official top 10 board games of 2024. Last year was a little late. That video didn't necessarily come out until January. So here we are, ready to go. Technically, this list contains 11 games, and it will be split into kind of two categories, which are going to be games that ranked based on the number of players I played them with and the number of plays total. And I also made a category for the number of hours played for some of the games as well, because there was such a wide variety of games. Some of them were, lighter, more party game, filler style games that I got to play very frequently. And then some of the games were the games that I invested like the most time and effort into. And I really wanted to make sure that this list was pretty comprehensive, as I have a lot of varying tastes and there are a lot of different games that fulfill different niches. I wanted to make sure to be able to highlight some of those amazing games and the experiences that I had playing them this year. So to get started, overall stats for the year, we have 1,029 plays, and I have a few more games planned for this year, but as of this point on December 27th, that's how many plays we have of 563 different games. And that was 274 games that I had never played before and over 500 hours of board gaming. So this was a really great year for playing games. I played over 52% of my collection. Last year I did a challenge where I played every single game in my collection, which was a little bit insane. And obviously those plays include games that I have sold or games that I've played that I don't own, etc. So there's that as well. Looking down below, there was some heavy gaming earlier in the year with some conventions and hosting board games and things like that. And you can see under that, we have the heat map, which I just thought is super cute and pretty. So you can kind of see throughout each day, through each month, how many plays I had, different player counts and different stats for various different locations that I got to play this year as well. So overall, really great year of gaming, but let's get into the actual plays. And yes, I also love the heat map. I just think it's really pretty to look at and nice. So we're going to start off with plays based on the number of players as well as the play count. So these are games that I got to play with a wide variety of people or got to play multiple times. So game number, I believe this is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, 6, because we have that 11th game here. We have 6 Nymph, or Take 5 from Amigo Games. I was able to play this 5 times, but the really crazy thing is that I got to play it with 19 different people, as the base game does play up to 10 people. Basically, this is a card game where you are trying to take the fewest cards with bowls on them. So you can see the cards that are laid out will have a number ranging from 1 to, I believe it's about 102, but they'll have a number of bowls based on the number of 5s and 10s that are on the cards. And you want to take the fewest points possible. So everybody will select a card, flip it over and reveal it, and they will be assigned to rows automatically based on the next highest number in sequence. And if you are the person to play the 6th card, then you have to take the 5 cards in that row, and those will count towards your score, which again, you want a low score. This is a really fun party game. It's great to play with just about anyone. And like I said, with having such a high player count, it's a really awesome one to bring to conventions, parties, get-togethers, etc. It's also available on Board Game Arena, so I was able to play it with some of our community members, some of you all, through our Discord chat. And this is just a really fun treat every time. So that is the game number 6 for player counts and number of plays, which is 6 Nymphs. Before we move on to the next game, greetings everyone if you're here live. Love to see what games you think will be on this list. So if you want to type any guesses in the chat or share your most played games, we would love to see that. All right, game number 5 for this mini list is Call of the Wild. I had 7 plays with 18 different players and totaling 23 minutes. That's right, because this game plays in just seconds. It is a real-time bluffing game. So basically, you have these different cards like you see here. We have our Whiffaloon, which says Chi-Chi. And the entire goal of the game is to try to get your animals to mate with other people's animals or to eat other people's animals. So that circle there is the food chain. When you put down your card, you're going to make any animal noise of your choice. So even though it's a Whiffaloon, you could mimic the call of something else. For example, if I wanted to eat some of those little scavenger bugs, instead of saying Chi-Chi, I could say Buzz Buzz and hope that somebody will match with me. If I'm able to be an animal one size larger, then you actually eat the other person's animal and take both cards. But if you make the same noise and match up, and then you get to mate and swap cards, and each card will be worth a point. There are also unique objectives where you might need to get a certain number of cards or from a certain number of players or have your cards distributed in certain ways. It's a really crazy, wild ride. There's nothing quite like it. If you've ever been in a room of a bunch of grown adults making crazy noises like Chi-Chi, Buzz Buzz, Haroom, yep. I mean, it's a sight for sure. And with 7 plays at 23 minutes total, each game lasts just about 3 minutes because, like I said, it is real time. It's a speed game. So you're going until somebody gets rid of all of the animals in their pen by making those noises and matching up with other players. Once that happens, you total up your score of the number of animals that you have in your den, as well as any bonus objectives, and that's the game. So it's, like I said, unlike anything I've ever seen or played before, it is certainly a game that is worth trying at least once just for the experience, even if that's not your thing. But I certainly love it and have had a blast playing it this year. So that is Call of the Wild. Next up, we have a 2-player game, Hanamikoji. This is one of my all-time favorite 2-player games. I have been playing it since it came out, basically, like way back when, years ago, when I first started in the hobby. I've gotten to play this 8 times with 6 different people at a total of 1.5 hours. This is definitely one that anytime I have the chance to play 2-player games, if somebody has not played it or heard of it, I always make sure to whip it out. It is just a really concise, very tight, I cut you choose set collection game where you are laying out different gifts. And based on the actions, you can get them into sets, you can reserve a card. However, the tricky part is that when you put out cards in sets, your opponent gets to choose cards from that collection to put into their set first, and you get the remainders. So that's where that little I cut you choose comes in. Now, there have been a lot of mini expansions that were released for Hanamikoji that come with different actions tile sets that you can utilize. But I find that even just the base game set of 4 actions is sufficient. I have had so much fun playing this game over the years and certainly in 2024. So if you haven't tried Hanamikoji, you absolutely need to check it out if you're looking for a 2-player game. Alrighty, the next game on here is a small game, but not a small game experience, and that is Mysticana from Button Shy Games. So this is actually an interesting one because it is not just a single game. It is actually a set of cards that you can use to play a variety of games from all different designers. So you have cards valued 1 through 5 in 3 different suits, as well as an avatar card, which you can see at the top here of each of those suits. And there are different types of games, which is why I have 10 plays of Mysticana with 10 different players at 1.5 hours, because I really wanted to try all of the different modes before I previewed this game. There's a lot of innovation here. There are solo games, there are games that play up to 6 players, 2-player head-to-head, bluffing, set collection, like you name it. There's a lot going on here, and there are even more sets, I believe, or mini expansions that will modify the game and allow you to play even more things with it in the future. As of right now in 2024, I will say that my personal favorite game that you can play with the Mysticana deck is the Cave of Djinns, which is a mini expansion for solo play. I actually did a full solo party video on it, so if you haven't seen that and that sounds interesting to you, you can definitely check it out. But overall, I just love the versatility of just having a little wallet of cards that you can take to play a solo game or play with multiple other people as well. And I think on top of that, the aesthetic and artwork for Mysticana is just really super beautiful. So that is definitely one that I would recommend checking out if you're looking for a versatile card-based system, which would be Mysticana, the foundation deck. And next we have another game that was really fun this year and I discovered this year, which is Freedom Infused's Fuji Flush. I had heard so many things about this game, but never had the opportunity to play it until a local convention nearby. And Fuji Flush, I got to play 12 times with 20 players and it had 1.5 hours total of playtime. This is a card shedding game where you are placing a card in front of you. And if that card has a higher value than anybody else's card that's in front of them, they have to flush their card and draw a new one. If it gets back to you and your card's still in front of you, you get to push, and then you are able to get rid of a card permanently. And once you have no cards, you are the winner. Now the catch is there are cards valued from 2 to 20. There are a lot of 2s, but only 120, so on and so forth. But if you play the same card as somebody else or multiple other people, you actually get to team up. So a 2, while it's very weak on its own, can become a 4 or a 6 or an 8 or a 10 or a 12, depending on how many people play them, which means that you can team up to block out other players or to collectively add on, because when one person pushes a 2, all the 2s that are locked in push together. So it's a really interesting mechanic. It creates some very chaotic types of situations. I really love ladder climbing, card shedding games, and this one definitely has a very unique feel and supports a large player count as well. So that's Fuji Flush. Next, we have another game that might look familiar, and this is Rafter 5, which is a dexterity game. I got to play Rafter 5 14 times this year with 20 different people, and the total playtime was about 3 hours. So Rafter 5 is a dexterity game where you are placing your little meeples onto the raft, inserting planks, and then placing treasure on there. And the goal is to make sure that you don't have anything fall off. You collect those treasure pieces as penalties anytime that they do. This one also has solo play. In fact, it may or may not have been on my top 10 solo games of the year list. So if you want to check that out, feel free to take a look at that after the stream or after you're done watching the video. But overall, I found that even for people who aren't necessarily super into dexterity games, this is a really awesome one. And it's very engaging. I love that the box is just a tiny little oink box and you actually use it as the platform to boost up your raft over the water. I just thought that that's so clever. And I really love just how quick and easy this one is to teach and to table. So that is Rafter 5. Before we get into the #1 most played game based on the number of plays this year, I'm just going to catch up with the chat. I have played Trio. I don't own it, but I do own Nana, which is the game that it's actually based off of. I was really thinking that it would be on this list this year because I did play Nana quite a bit. Shout out to Nana, because I finally got my hands on a copy, but I think I got it a little too late in the year for it to make this list. Far Away is a really great game as well. I got to try that on Board Game Arena and also in person because my friend owns it. But it is not #1 on this list. #1 is actually, and this may or may not be a surprise, Ito. So this is a really great party game. I've heard it described as kind of like a combination of Wavelength and The Mind, but personally, I do not enjoy Wavelength or The Mind at all. But I love, love, love Ito. So Basically, what happens is it's a cooperative game where each round you get a unique prompt. So, for example, it might be famous people or things you'd be excited to find in your pocket. Everybody gets a card valued from 1 to 100, and then they secretly have to place it face down while answering the prompt. And then it's everybody's goal to work together to try to order the cards from lowest to highest based on, whatever their prompts are. And then you can deliberate and decide when you want to lock in, and then flip up each card to see if they are in the correct order. Now, as you play, you can go multiple rounds if you want to, where you add more and more cards that have to be placed into order. In fact, I just played this one again at our game night last night, and it was just so fun. This has been a true joy to be able to play this year. I can't think of a game that I've been able to share with more people and have more memorable moments of just extreme excitement and pride and joy, crying and hugging when you get like 12 cards in a row collectively, as well as some very interesting insights into some of the people I play board games with. I will not name names, but there have been some interesting answers to some prompts that have really, made me question my life decisions, but in the best way possible. So number one for number of plays is Ito with 30 plays and 31 different people at just around 4 hours of game time. So moving on to the second part of our list here, this is where we're going to have some chunky fellows, because these games are not based on the number of times played or the number of people that I've played with them with, but rather the number of hours played. So I revealed at the beginning of the stream that I spent just over 500 hours this year playing board games, which is pretty, I don't know. I feel pretty good about it, but maybe there's an intervention coming in 2025. So I'm really excited to share my top 5 games here based on the number of hours played. The first 4 will be in order, but the number 1 game is going to be a little different, which I'll get to in a second. So coming in at number 5, we have a great staple, which is It's a Wonderful World. This is a drafting game with some engine building where you are going to be drafting various building cards are multi-use. You can either put them into your build area and use cubes to construct them, or discard them to get resources. These will then be added to your empire, which will help you generate more cubes, score points, etc. While you're doing that, you're also competing for majorities in producing certain types of cubes. So you might have a lot of green cubes, which is like scientific research, or a lot of yellow cubes, which represent money, so things like banks and things like that. This game is really awesome, especially with the expansion. The first major expansion, it supports play of up to, I believe it's 7 players. So I was able to play this one 5 times with 16 different people at just about 6 hours of playtime. This is, like I said, one of my favorites. It's also on BGA, but I don't really enjoy playing it there. I just feel like you really need that tactile feel to be able to see everything that's going on, see which buildings are in construction, etc. And I have just, this is not a game that I discovered in 2024, but even though that's the case, it's definitely been one of my most played this year still. So It's a Wonderful World. Number 4 is a new game, however, and that's Salton Sea from Devere Games. I got to play this 3 times with 5 different people at just about 6 hours. So this one is a little bit lengthier of a game for sure, but it is a blast. So this game is all about mining or farming brine out on the Salton Sea in the Pacific. Basically, you have your own tableau and your workers, which you can dedicate to different actions of expanding your mines, drilling, collecting brine, refining resources, researching, selling, and fulfilling contracts. So this, like I said, is a very chunky one. One of the things that I really love about it is that the cards are multi-use. Not only do they have special abilities that you can then place your meeple on to use, or different power-ups and things like that, but they're also your money and currency for the game. So you really have some tight decisions between, okay, well, I need to buy XYZ, but I really need the action on this card as well. So what am I going to do with that? It can be really, really challenging. But I think that the, overall flow of the game, while there are a lot of tight decisions, the different actions work together pretty well. So I found that this is a pretty straightforward one to be able to teach as far as like heavier types of, multi-hour Euro style games go. I really love the aesthetic, as somebody pointed out in the chat as well. It's just really refreshing and clean. I would say that one of the only little things with some of the graphic design choices, like the cost of the research cards is very small relative to everything else, but like overall looking at it, as you can see, it just has great table presence, especially for a Euro game where it's just nice and refreshing without being too distracting, and you can really focus on the gameplay and the mechanics and really maximizing your profits. So this is a really great one that I got to play this year and share. I haven't gotten to try it solo yet, but I've heard great things. So I'm really hoping that I'll be able to do that in 2025. Moving on to game number 3. Speaking of beautiful, wonderful Euro-style games, we have Revive from Aporta Games. I was able to play this 7 times with 7 different people at a total of about 10 hours of gameplay. So Revive is a game about reviving I believe it's the Earth that has frozen over. So you're coming in, melting the ice, cultivating, building cities, expanding research. And while you're doing that, you get to upgrade your main board, which is kind of like a tech tree of 3 different paths. In order to do that, you have these awesome multi-use cards. So it feels a little bit of deck building in there as well that you can plug into your board by sliding it into different slots. And based on if you slide it on the top, bottom, or side, you get different actions from your card. And you also get different actions as well based on the slot modules, which you can kind of see sticking up in the picture there, that you can use to upgrade certain factions of cards. So if you slide a green card into that top slot and it's got that like green crystal, not only do you get the action on there, but you also get the resource in that slot module. There is a lot going on here. There are a lot of crazy combos that you can set off with those cards and that engine of like your board itself. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to say. We always joke that, there are a lot of like dry beige Euros out there, but we always joke that Revive is like a wet Euro because it's just so juicy and good. But it has all those features of Euro style goodness with that resource management, a little bit of deck building, engine building, routes kind of management out on the board and placing out your meeples in your buildings to then collect resources. There's just a lot of great stuff. And then you have endgame scoring bonuses too, like so cool. There's a lot going on here, but similar to what I said with Salton Sea, I found that it's pretty straightforward to teach because like many of Aporta Games' other games, all of the different things just fit together so well and really make sense with the theme. The iconography and the layout, although it may look a little confusing in the picture, I certainly thought so before I got to play it. It really makes sense in the context of the game and feels very intuitive. And like I said, there are some turns where you just get really awesome, sick combos. There's only a little bit of interaction in terms of like claiming areas on the board and the timing of things with other players. So even though there may be some downtime on someone else's turn, you're usually using everybody else's turn to plan out what you're going to do and make sure that you're ready to like get the best action economy. So if you haven't checked out Revive yet and you're a fan of Euro games, this is an absolute must for me. All right, and going from 10 hours to 17 hours, we have technically the #1 game in terms of the hours played, which some of y'all might have guessed, but it is Sweetlands from Uchiwa-Koya. This is another Euro-style game. I got to play it 7 times with 7 different people. Not 17 hours, 19 hours of gameplay. So in this game, you are going to be creating a city and cultivating a land of sweets in order to impress the cookie rabbits and have them move in. So all of the theme things are about those delectable, yummy sweets. You're going to be placing out your different action workers on the board by using your cards, which are also multi-use because you can use them as agents in order to do different actions. You can trade them in for resources. You can use them to build an engine, all sorts of fun stuff that you can do with your cards there. And in the pursuit of that, you're going to be kind of terraforming the land and then building routes as well as different buildings that you can develop. Again, similar to Revive, there's a lot of combo-y goodness with this one. I've talked ad nauseum about it. I have a couple videos, including a playthrough, a solo playthrough, and then a full preview for Kickstarter. And this one, I have to say, I've said it in each time, but this is the big disclaimer was, although I love the theme and I love all the mechanics, I wasn't sure how I would feel about it, but clearly 19 hours of gameplay speaks for itself in terms of how much I really loved being able to play this game in 2024. So I'm very excited to see all the updates that come with the full version of it in 2025, what little things they might tweak or add on. I think already, even just with it being a preview copy that I was lucky enough to be able to try in 2024, it was such a fantastic experience and a wonderful game. So like I said, I'm very excited to see the final version in 2025. All right, before we get down to the last game based on not just number of hours played, but also the players and player counts, because this game was one that I got to play for a long amount of time, as well as had quite a few plays with quite a few different people as well. So if you're here live and you have any thoughts or guesses as to what that kind of overall number one game is based on those averages, please let me know. While we do that, I'm going to catch up with the chat here really quickly as well. I have not gotten to try Boon Lake, but I am hoping to this next year for sure. And yeah, I would say that with a lot of these games like Revive or probably even Salton Sea, there's so much stuff going on, sliding of cards, moving of tokens, etc. It would not be one that I would want to play online. I definitely want to have a physical copy in front of me to move everything around. But yeah, I would say definitely hope that you're able to play a physical copy and try that out because it's a really great experience. Okay, so our number one board game of 2024 based on the number of plays, number of players, and the number of hours played is First in Flight. So I got to play First in Flight from Genius Games 8 times with 10 different people for a total of 8 hours. So not the most in any of those categories, but looking at all of them together, this game definitely stood out as being one of my top games from 2024. And I have to say, that's just the cold hard stats, but in my heart, definitely this was a top game of 2024 as well. So First in Flight is a 1 to 4 player deck building game where you are creating and crafting one of the first airplanes, being a pioneer in aeroscience. Basically, you're moving your meeple around the board, so it's a time track, so whoever is least or last in line is going to get to move forward, spending time and money in order to execute different actions, a lot of which revolve around upgrading your deck, which represents your plane. I've talked, again, a lot about this one on the channel over the past year, whether it was, when I first got the game for the monthly plays. I did a solo party video on it. It was on another top 10 list recently. So I won't, reiterate too much for those of y'all who have heard of it or are familiar with it, but I will say that in general, I have, not seen a lot of games that have this high of a level of excitement and fun with pushing your luck in flying as you flip over each card, trying to decide when to land before you pull up too many of those flight problems where you might crash. I think that that's just such a fun mechanic, and I'm very wary of push your luck games, but with this one, you have so much control over crafting your plane, getting different skills to mitigate some of that luck withdrawing in your deck, and obviously deciding when you're going to descend. There is just a lot of ways to mitigate that and to feel like you have control, or to really push it and rely on the luck, because at the end of the game, it's not your total flights combined, it's your longest flight that you've had throughout the whole game. So there's not only push your luck in the fly action where you lay out your deck, but also in terms of the overall game and how you want to build your deck and how much you want to rely and push on that. And as far as that goes, I think one of the reasons why that works so well for First in Flight is it really connects the mechanics to the theme so well. I think that all of the cards, all of the upgrades, like you really feel like you are tinkering away at your plane, trying to fine tune it and get it just right for that perfect flight. And when you lay out those cards, it is exhilarating. Like, I just think it's such a fun experience to be able to, peep into the history a little bit and the science behind developing those planes and the historical figures who helped fund and support those endeavors. But also just mechanically as a game, like, what a treat and something quite unique as well. I really love, like I said, the idea of having deck building and push your luck, which don't normally always feel super strategic, like compared to some of these other games that are like more standard kind of Euro games. This one just has a really unique flavor to it, and that's why it is one of my top games, if not my top game from 2024. So that is First in Flight. Alrighty, so that brings us to the end of our stream. Thank you so much to everybody who was able to join live. Thank you if you're watching in the future. If you would be so kind as to click the like button below, it really does help out the channel in terms of getting the video out to a wider audience of people who may enjoy these games as much as I have, and hopefully you will if you played them or will get to try them. It's been an awesome year of gaming in 2024. It was really excellent being able to play such a wide variety of games. Like I said, this is our top 10, 11 asterisk, but there were so many more amazing games. I wish I could just talk about them all. But next year I'm going to continue talking about games each month with all the games that I get to try out, and I'm really excited and looking forward to see which of these games really stand the test of time next year as well. So again, thanks so much for being here. Thank you for all of the support. I hope that everybody has a wonderful rest of their 2024 with some amazing games, amazing memories, staying safe and sound and happy, and we'll see you in 2025. Thanks again, as always, for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.